Excuse me, sir. My mom has a tattoo just like that.
Jordan dropped his guitar pick. It slipped from his fingers, bounced once on the wooden stage, and disappeared under his sneaker. For a second, the whole cafe seemed to fall out of rhythm. The low murmur of voices, the clink of cups, even the soft hum of the espresso machine in the back. Everything hung in the air around that one small sentence. He looked down at the girl standing near the edge of the tiny stage. She couldn't have been more than 8. Freckles dusted her nose, light brown hair pulled into 2 messy braids. She wore a yellow raincoat still damp from the drizzle outside, puddles forming around her sneakers. Her eyes, though, that pale storm gray, hit him like a chord he hadn't played in years. Automatically, he pushed his sleeve down. Too late. The girl had already seen. On his inner wrist, black ink curved into the shape he knew better than his own face. A music note cracked clean through the middle and stitched back together with a thin line of thread. The same note he'd once drawn on a napkin with someone else. Someone who'd promised him forever. Someone he'd lost. The girl kept staring. She pointed, earnest and unafraid. "Right here," she went on, tapping her own collarbone. "My mom has one. It looks, exactly like yours." Jordan's throat went dry. From the counter, a woman froze mid-reach as the barista handed her 2 steaming cups of hot chocolate. Her blonde hair was tied in a low knot at the nape of her neck, a few strands falling loose around her face. She turned toward the stage when she heard her daughter speak. And there it was, just above the neckline of her sweater, half hidden, half showing. A black curve of ink peeked out on her skin. A broken music note, stitched back together. Jordan's fingers tightened on the neck of his guitar. His heart climbed into his throat as his gaze rose from that tattoo to the woman's face. She was older now, softer around the eyes, a little thinner in the cheeks. Life had left its fingerprints on her, but the eyes were the same pale gray he remembered. Eyes he'd memorized in rooms full of smoke and cheap beer and borrowed guitars. "Elena," he whispered before he could stop himself. Her eyes widened. For a long heartbeat, they just stared at each other across the half-full cafe. Him on his stage, her by the counter, the little girl between them. Outside, the rain tapped on the wide front window of Harbor Lights Café, turning the world beyond into a blur of streetlights and smeared reflections. Jordan felt the air shift, felt the past slam into his chest with the weight of 10 years. He had the sudden, ridiculous thought that if he looked down, he'd see the floorboards warped beneath his feet from all the ghosts standing there with him. He didn't know it yet, but the past he'd spent a decade running from had just walked in wearing a yellow raincoat and calling someone else Mom. And to understand why one small tattoo could crack 3 lives wide open, you'd have to go back. Back to another rainy night. Back to when everything went wrong. Harborview wasn't the kind of town you woke up dreaming about. Most people landed there by accident and stayed because it was easier than leaving. A strip of gray-blue ocean. A line of docks. A downtown of 2-story buildings with peeling paint and flower boxes fighting to stay alive. On good days, the air smelled like salt and coffee. On bad days, like salt and gasoline. But for Elena Ward, Harborview had become the closest thing she had to solid ground. Her alarm went off at 6 every morning, even on Saturdays. She swung her legs out of bed in the small 2-bedroom apartment over the laundromat and sat there for a second, palms pressed to her eyes until the wave of exhaustion passed. Then she stood up. Toast in the toaster. Orange juice poured. School lunch packed. The same rhythm every day. When she opened her daughter's door, the sunlight from the single window was a soft gray smear over stuffed animals and colored pencils. "Lily," she said gently, brushing hair from her daughter's face. "Time to get up, bug." Lily blinked awake, eyes the color of clouds before a storm. 5 more minutes, she mumbled. 5 more minutes means no hot chocolate after school, Elena warned. Lily popped up like a spring. "I'm awake," she grinned. "Totally, completely awake." They moved around each other in the tiny kitchen like they'd practiced it 1,000 times, because they had. Elena buttered toast while Lily hunted for her missing sock. Lily complained about math homework while Elena braided her hair. "Mom?" Lily asked suddenly, flipping through a notebook while she chewed. "Do you think my dad liked music?" The question landed like a stone in a still pond. Elena's hand tightened around the knife. For a moment, the knife didn't spread butter. It just hovered. "I'm sure he would have," she said, carefully steady. "Why do you ask?" Lily shrugged, cheeks puffing as she swallowed. "Mrs. Carter said her husband is teaching their boy to play drums, and Mia's dad plays guitar, and Theo's dad sings those silly songs when he walks him to school." She trailed off, picking at the crust. "I just wondered, if I had a dad, maybe he'd play music with me too." Elena's chest ached the way it always did when the subject came up. She took a slow breath, set the knife down, and sat. She wanted to say everything. She wanted to say nothing. So she walked the same fragile line she'd walked for 8 years. "You have me," she said softly, touching her daughter's cheek. "And I'm not great at music, but I can clap off beat like a professional." Lily snorted. "That's true. You can't clap on beat at all." They laughed. The moment eased. But when Lily turned away to shove her notebooks into her backpack, Elena's fingers drifted up, like they did 100 times a day, and found the ink just below her collarbone. Her tattoo. The broken note. The one piece of her past she hadn't buried. She felt it there under her fingertips, like a secret she carried right beneath her skin. Across town the same morning, Jordan Cole sat on the edge of his own bed, in a room over a bait shop that always smelled faintly of fish and coffee. He'd been awake long before his alarm. Sleep came in scraps for him, half songs, half memories, the line between the two fading over time. He stretched, rolled his shoulders, then got up and padded over to the kitchen corner that passed for a cooking space. Cheap coffee, one clean mug. He poured, leaned against the counter, and stared out at the strip of ocean visible through the rain-streaked window. Once, back in another city, another life, he'd woken up in apartments where the walls were papered with posters from gigs, where his phone buzzed non-stop with texts from bandmates, producers, women whose names he never had to remember because they said them loud and high over bass-heavy speakers. Then the bottom dropped out. A bad contract. A producer who smiled while he slid the knife in. A lawsuit. An anxiety spiral that ate songs for breakfast. And a girl who'd disappeared without a word. He ran a thumb over his wrist, where the ink of the broken note darkened his skin. "Don't go there," he muttered to himself. Jordan wasn't proud of how hard he'd crashed. He wasn't proud of the months he'd drifted from couch to couch, gig to gig, pretending everything was fine while something inside him slowly stopped caring whether he hit the right chord or not. But somewhere in that haze, he'd taken a temp job playing at a hotel bar in a seaside town called Harborview. The town was small, forgettable, except it didn't forget him. And by the time his contract ended, he didn't want to leave. Now, he taught a couple of kids guitar on weekday afternoons. At night, he sat on a little stage in Harbor Lights Café and played songs for tourists, locals, and the occasional lonely soul who needed something to fill the silence between them and their thoughts. He'd stopped hoping for miracles a long time ago. He just wanted the music to stop hurting so much. The first time Lily heard Jordan play, it was because of the rain. She and Elena were supposed to walk straight past Harbor Lights. They always did. The cafe sat right on the corner near the library, a warm, golden square in the row of gray buildings, big glass windows glowing out into the street. And every afternoon, like clockwork, music bled out from inside. Not the loud kind that rattled windows, but something softer. Guitars. Voices that sounded like they'd already lived 3 lives. Elena usually steered them to the opposite sidewalk. "Why can't we ever go in there?" Lily had asked once. "Too expensive," Elena had lied. "Besides, they're always so crowded." The real answer was simpler. Elena couldn't risk bumping into old ghosts. Even if the chances were microscopic, she'd learned that the past had a way of showing up when you least wanted it to. She wasn't ready. She wasn't sure she'd ever be ready. Then, one gray Thursday, the sky opened up without warning. Rain slammed down in sheets, soaking them in seconds. "Mom!" Lily squealed, pulling her hood up. "We're gonna drown!" "Come on!" Elena grabbed her hand. They sprinted the few steps to the nearest door. Harbor Lights Café. By the time Elena realized where they were already inside, dripping on the mat. Warmth hit them first. Then the smell. Coffee, cinnamon, something baking. Conversations hummed in the background, and underneath it all, guitar strings. "Hey, welcome in out of the storm," the barista said, cheerful, sliding napkins toward them. "Find a seat. I'll be right with you." Elena's eyes flicked toward the stage. A man sat on a stool, head bent over his guitar. Dark skin, shoulders broad beneath a flannel shirt. His hair was pulled back, jaw shadowed with stubble. His voice wrapped itself around the room, low and rough and tired in a way that made people stop stirring their drinks just to listen. For a second, panic flashed through her. But it wasn't him. Not the city, not that cramped studio apartment, not that boy with the wild grin and the world on his shoulders. This was someone else. This was safe. "Mom!" Lily tugged her sleeve, eyes wide. "Can we stay? Just until the rain stops? Please?" Elena hesitated. Then she nodded, because saying no to that face was like trying to stop the tide. "Just until the rain lets up," she said. "And only hot chocolate. No giant cookies." "We'll see," Lily sing-songed, already scanning for the best possible seat. They chose a small table close to the front. Lily turned her chair so she was facing the stage directly, chin propped in her hands. Elena tried not to look too much. She took off her damp coat, smoothed her sweater, checked that the collar covered what it should. The barista brought hot chocolate crowned with whipped cream for Lily, a latte for Elena. On stage, the guitarist glanced up. Their eyes met for half a second. He gave a little nod, the kind performers gave to anyone who chose to sit close. A polite acknowledgement. "I see you there." He didn't recognize her. Of course he didn't. Elena turned her attention to the foam art in her cup, pretending her hands weren't shaking. Lily, oblivious, was already gone somewhere inside the music. After that, Harbor Lights became part of their routine. Not every day, not even every week. But whenever the weather turned, whenever Lily's eyes went cloudy with something she couldn't name, Elena found herself walking just slowly enough that if her daughter said, "Can we?" she would have no choice but to say yes. Lily started bringing a small notebook to the cafe. While the man on stage, Jordan, according to the chalkboard sign, played, she'd draw. Little things at first. A guitar. A mug with steam curling out in the shape of a cat. A girl with giant headphones. Jordan noticed. It was hard not to. She sat in the same general spot whenever they came. Her knees bounced in time to the music. She watched his fingers like she was trying to memorize the way they moved. One slow afternoon, between sets, he hopped off the stage and wandered over with his empty mug in hand. "Hey," he said gently, "that's some serious art you've got going there." Lily glanced up, startled, then beamed. "Thanks." He tilted his head, looking at the open page. "You come here a lot," he said. "I've seen you, what, 5 times now? 6? 7, Lily corrected. "Mom says that's not a lot, but I think it's almost a lot." He laughed, quiet. 7's a solid number. I'm Jordan. I'm Lily. Her mom, Elena, looked up from her book. Lily, she said warningly. It's okay, Jordan said quickly, holding up a hand. Just being neighborly. You're her mom? Yes, Elena said a little warily. Elena. Sorry if she ever distracts you. She gets enthusiastic. In my experience, enthusiastic is way better than bored, Jordan said. And she's my best audience. I swear she hears chords the rest of you miss. That wasn't just a compliment. It was true. Lily's fingers drummed lightly on the table as he spoke, falling into the rhythm of the last song he'd played. A very specific rhythm. A syncopated pattern he'd picked up years ago in a cramped apartment with a girl who tapped that same pattern on his chest while he pretended to sleep. He swallowed, pushing the thought away. What are you drawing? He asked, nodding to the notebook. Lily glanced at Elena, who sighed but nodded for her to go ahead. It's, a thing from my dreams, Lily said, flipping the page around. Jordan's breath caught. On the paper, in pencil lines and shading, was a symbol. A music note, cracked down the middle, stitched together with a thin line of thread. The sound of the cafe faded. For a second, it was 10 years ago, and he was 25 with calloused fingers and 2 big dreams, scribbling that same note on a napkin while a girl with gray eyes laughed. What's so funny? She'd said, chin on his shoulder. You're really going to get this tattooed? He'd asked. If you do. Matching tattoos are cursed. You're cursed, she'd shot back. You're always saying you're broken, but look. She'd drawn the line of thread, stitching the note together with quick, sure strokes. You're not broken. You're in progress. That's different. He'd kissed her then, ink still wet. You okay? Elena's voice cut through his trance. Jordan blinked. He realized he'd gone still, half bent over the drawing. Yeah, he said, a little too quickly. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's a cool design. He licked his lips. Where'd you see it? Lily shrugged. In my head. It keeps popping up when I'm about to fall asleep, like a little picture. Something cold brushed the back of his neck. He forced a smile. Well, your head has excellent taste, he said. Mind if I steal it sometime for an album cover? Really? Lily's eyes went huge. Really? He went back to the stage, his heart beating too fast for how calm the afternoon looked. Behind the bar, Elena watched him go, her fingers pressed to the hollow of her throat, right where her own ink lay hidden. If life were kinder, maybe the story would have stalled there. Little coincidences. A feeling in the air. A connection that hummed just below awareness, never quite loud enough to demand attention. But life isn't kind. Not always. And some knots don't stay buried. They wait. And then, one rainy evening, they pulled tight. The night it all snapped open. The rain was steady, but not heavy. The cafe glowed like it always did. Jordan's set list was propped up on the stand beside him. Old favorites, a couple of originals, one cover he'd promised a regular he'd play. He pushed his sleeve up without thinking as he tuned the guitar. The ink on his wrist caught the stage light. That was the moment the storm changed direction. Lily was close to the stage that night, sitting on a stool someone had dragged over for her so she could see better. Elena was at the counter, waiting on their drinks, her back half turned, trusting her daughter within the warm circle of the cafe. Okay, folks, Jordan said into the mic, voice easy. This next one's for anyone who's ever forgotten how to fix something they broke. His fingers found the opening chords automatically. Somewhere between the second verse and the chorus, Lily's small voice rose, piping clear through the music. Excuse me, sir. My mom has a tattoo just like that. The room didn't actually go silent, but it felt like it. Jordan froze mid-strum. The chord died halfway out of his guitar. Conversations stuttered. A spoon hit the floor somewhere in the back. He looked down at Lily, then at his wrist. There it was, the broken note, the stitch. He swallowed. "Yeah?" he managed, his voice rough. "She does?" "Uh-huh." Lily nodded emphatically and pointed across the room. "Right there, on her chest." "Elena," the barista called, setting 2 mugs on the counter. "Hot chocolates!" The woman at the counter turned. Elena. 10 years older. 10 years quieter. But undeniably, Elena. Jordan's brain stuttered like a skipped CD, time folded over itself, lit over. The cafe blurred and reshaped itself into a dozen other places. The basement venue where he'd first seen her in the crowd. The narrow stairwell up to the apartment they'd shared for 3 wild, impossible months. The bus station where he'd watched her walk away with a suitcase and a lie. "Elena," he said again, this time into the microphone, the name low and raw. She stiffened. Her eyes snapped to his. For a moment, she looked like she might pretend she didn't know him. Like she might just pick up the hot chocolates, turn around, and walk right back out into the rain. Then Lily skipped over to her, tugging on her sleeve. "Mom, look," she said. "He has the same tattoo. Isn't that crazy?" "Lily," Elena whispered, every syllable coated in panic. "Come here, we need to go." "But my hot chocolate—" "We'll take it to go." Jordan stepped off the stage. He didn't remember deciding to. One second he was on the stool, the next he was on the floor, guitar hanging from its strap, mic stand squealing feedback behind him. "Elena," he said, closer now. "It's you." Up close, there was no doubt. The faint scar along her jaw from that time she'd slipped on the icy sidewalk. The tiny birthmark near her temple. The way her mouth pressed flat when she lied. He saw her flicker, fight, flight, deny, confess, every option passing through her eyes in a heartbeat. "Jordan," she said finally, his name like a bruise on her tongue. We have to go." She grabbed the cups, set one hastily in front of Lily and shoved the other into her own hand. Her fingers shook. Coffee sloshed over the rim. "Wait." Jordan reached out, then stopped himself just short of touching her. You live here? You're in Harborview?" Her laugh was a quick, sharp exhale. "Apparently we both are. So all this time—" "Don't," she cut in. "Not here." "Mom," Lily said, confused, gaze bouncing between them. "Do you know him?" Elena looked at her daughter, then at Jordan. Her voice cracked on the answer. "I used to," she said. "A long time ago." Outside, the rain hammered harder against the glass. Inside, something old and fragile inside Jordan finally split. For 3 days, he tried to pretend it had been a weird coincidence. He told himself that Harborview wasn't that small. People moved through towns without ever really belonging to them. It was possible, he argued with himself, that Elena had just passed through, that he'd never see her again. Except Harborview was that small, and she didn't just pass through. She worked at the public library 2 blocks from the cafe. He found that out when Lily left her backpack under a table one afternoon. The barista found the lost and found card inside and showed him the school contact sheet. "Ward, Lily," he read aloud. "Parent, Ward, Elena. Emergency contact, Harborview Public Library." He stared at the words so long the letters started to swim. That afternoon he walked to the library after his lessons, hands jammed into his jacket pockets. He told himself he was just making sure the kid got her bag back. That was it. Healthy concern, responsible adult behavior. The building was old brick, with arched windows and 2 stone lions guarding the steps. He climbed them slowly, guitar calluses catching slightly on the cold metal of the door handle. Inside, It was quiet in the way only libraries and empty churches could be. The air smelled like paper and dust and something floral. He found her in the children's section. She sat cross-legged on a rug covered in cartoon animals, a half-circle of kids in front of her. Lily was front and center, leaning against her mother's knee, listening intently as Elena read aloud from a picture book. "And the little bird realized," Elena was saying, voice soft but clear, "that home wasn't a place that stayed the same. Home was where the people who loved you were, even if they moved around." Her voice hadn't changed. Jordan stood there, hidden behind a shelf of chapter books, and listened. He watched the way Elena's hand absently stroked Lily's hair, the small, unconscious tenderness of it. He watched Lily's fingers tapping out a rhythm on her own knee. Familiar, offbeat. His rhythm. He felt the ground tilt. When story time ended, the kids scattered to pick out books. Elena stacked the ones she'd used and set them aside. Lily bounced away toward the graphic novels. Jordan stepped out from between the shelves. "You always did give the best speeches about home," he said quietly. Elena spun. For a second, she almost smiled. Habit, maybe. Then reality caught up, and the smile died before it fully formed. "You shouldn't be back here," she said. But her voice sounded more tired than harsh. "Employees only." "Then fire me," he said. "Feels like I got fired once already." She flinched. "That's not fair." "Nothing about this feels fair." They stared at each other across a sea of tiny chairs and alphabet posters. "What do you want, Jordan?" she asked finally. He looked toward the graphic novel section, where Lily knelt in front of a low shelf, humming under her breath. "I honestly don't know," he admitted. "Answers, maybe. A conversation longer than 3 seconds. The truth." Elena's hand drifted to her collar, fingers brushing the edge of her hidden ink. "I can't do this in the children's aisle," she muttered. "I need to finish my shift. We close at 8. If you're still interested in talking after that, I'll be at the staff door in the back." He nodded. "Okay?" "And Jordan?" she added, voice low. "Yeah? Don't say anything to her. Not yet." His jaw tightened. "You think I'd do that?" he asked, hurt flickering hot. "You think I'd walk up to an 8-year-old kid and just drop everything on her head?" "I don't know what you'd do," she said, barely more than a whisper. "That's kind of the problem." He swallowed whatever he was about to say back down, where it burned. "I'll see you at 8, he said instead. He almost didn't go. He paced his tiny apartment for an hour, guitar leaning in the corner, rain smudging the view outside. Every time he thought about seeing her, really talking to her, the inside of his chest felt like someone was squeezing a fist around it. But not going felt worse. So, at 7:58, he stood in the alley behind the library, hands in his pockets, hood up against the drizzle. The staff door opened at 8 sharp. Elena stepped out, locking it behind her. The streetlight above them flickered, painting her face in flashes of yellow and shadow. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey." They stood there in the damp, neither knowing where to start. He broke first. "You disappeared." "You told me to," she said, eyes flashing. "You were the one who said you needed to focus on your career. No distractions." "I didn't mean you. You didn't say that." "I thought it was implied." "Well, it wasn't," she snapped. Then she took a breath, shoulders dropping. "Jordan, we were kids. You were chasing something so big you could barely see anything else. I was terrified and pregnant, and I made a call." The word hit him like a slap. "Pregnant," he repeated, the syllables thick on his tongue. "You were pregnant. When?" "Right before I left," she admitted. "I found out the morning I bought the bus ticket. And you didn't tell me." She stared down at her hands. No, she said. I didn't. The alley seemed to shrink. Why? His voice shook. Why wouldn't you tell me something like that? She laughed once, humorless. Because I knew what you'd say. She looked up at him, eyes bright with old hurt. You'd say you'd fix it. You'd say you'd get another job, or 2 or 3. That we could make it work. That you'd be there for me and the baby and the dream all at once. And I'd believe you, because I always did. Was that such a terrible thing? He asked. It would have been for you, she said quietly. You already felt trapped by the contract. You already felt like you were letting your mom down, your band down, yourself down. I couldn't be another weight on your chest. So instead you cut me out completely, he said, bitterness scraping at his throat. You took my kid and vanished. That was kinder? I thought, her voice cracked, I thought you'd be better off, free. I thought you'd resent me less if you never knew. He stared at her, rain beating on his lashes. And him? He asked. She blinked. Him who? The guy, he said. The husband. Lily's last name is Ward. Yours. Nobody else's. But you wore a ring. Once. I saw it in the cafe. She glanced down at her bare hand, thumb unconsciously rubbing the place where the band used to sit. Ethan, she said. We met about a year after I came back here. He knew I was pregnant. He asked me to marry him anyway. Said he didn't care whose genetics were whose, he just wanted a family. Jordan closed his eyes. So he raised my daughter, he said, the first 8 years, while I was, what, smoking out hotel windows and trying not to have a panic attack on stage? Ethan was a good man, she said. He died 3 years ago. Car accident. And before you ask, no, he never knew. I made my choices. I lived with them. And Lily? Jordan asked. She thinks he's her dad. He was her dad, Elena said. In every way that mattered. And me? His voice braided anger with grief. What does that make me? She met his eyes. Biology, she said. Until tonight. They stood in the rain while sirens wailed faintly somewhere in the distance. He wanted to scream. He wanted to hug her. He wanted to walk away and never see her again. He wanted to never leave her side. Instead, what came out was, is there any chance I'm wrong? That I'm not? She held up a hand. I already did the test, she murmured. He blinked. What? A week ago, she said. After we ran into you at Harbor Lights, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'd lived 8 years pretending I didn't know the math, but I did. So I ordered a kit. I swabbed her cheek while she was sleeping. Her voice went soft with shame. I sent it off. She fumbled in her bag and pulled out an envelope, already opened, the paper inside slightly crumpled. I wasn't going to show you, she admitted. I thought if I just stayed away, if we never saw you again, I could shred it and keep going. But then Lily, and the tattoo, and I can't unknow this anymore. She held the envelope out to him. Read it. His fingers shook as he took it. He unfolded the paper. The words blurred at first. He had to blink a few times to make the letters settle into place. It was all very clinical. Names, numbers, probability of paternity, 99.99%. The alley tilted. For a second, he thought he might actually throw up. His knees went weak and he leaned back against the brick wall. He'd always joked that he'd be a terrible father, that he didn't know how, that he'd mess it up. He'd never imagined not being given the chance. Jordan, Elena said quietly. Say something. He looked up, paper crinkling in his fist. How old is she? He asked. even though he already knew. 8, she whispered. He exhaled, a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. I've been her father for 8 years, he said. I just didn't know. Not father, Elena corrected gently. Not yet. Her father is... It's complicated. So make it less complicated, he shot back. Tell her. She's 8, Elena repeated. Her world is fragile. I can't just drop a bomb like that and walk away. Who said anything about walking away? He demanded. Their voices had risen without them noticing. A light flicked on in an apartment window across the alley. Elena rubbed her temples. Please, she said softly. Not like this. Not here. I need time to figure out how to do this without breaking her. He stared at her for a long, long moment. Time is kind of what you've already taken, he said finally. 8 years of it. She closed her eyes, shoulders sagging. I know, she whispered. And I'm sorry. I am so, so sorry. Something in his anger cracked at the sound of that. He'd imagined this reunion 100 different ways. In most of them, she was cold, unrepentant, cruel. He'd yell, she'd shrug, they'd part forever. This wasn't that. This was a woman who had made a terrible choice for reasons that heartbreakingly made sense. A woman who'd carried the weight of that choice every day since. He leaned his head back against the wall and stared up at the rain-silvered strip of sky. What do we do? He asked at last. She hesitated. Then, come to the library tomorrow, she said. 3 o'clock. We can start with the truth. Just not all of it at once. He nodded, barely. Okay. And Jordan? She swallowed. Thank you for reading that here, not in front of her. He didn't trust his voice, so he just nodded again. When he finally walked away, the paper felt heavier in his pocket than stone. The next afternoon, rain drizzled in misty sheets over Harborview as Jordan walked back to the library. His heart rattled against his ribs like something trying to get free. He had no plan. He just had a fact. He had a daughter. Inside, the library buzzed quietly with after-school energy. Kids dropped backpacks, whispered too loudly, argued over who got the newest comics. He spotted Elena behind the front desk, checking in returned books. She looked up when he approached. Hey, she said, voice careful. She's in the back, computers. She thinks you're here to pick up a book her class donated to the Café. He frowned. Is that true? She gave a half shrug. It can be, she said. Tomorrow. Today it's a reason for you two to exist in the same space longer than 30 seconds. He blew out a breath. So what do I say? She hesitated. Be you, she said finally. You were always annoyingly good with kids. He almost smiled. I was annoyingly good with you. That too, she admitted. They walked together toward the computer corner. Lily sat at a station, feet hooked around the chair legs, tongue poking out a little as she clicked through a typing game. A pair of oversized headphones sat around her neck, tinny sound leaking out. Hey, Bug, Elena said gently, leaning down beside her. Hey, Mom. Lily's eyes stayed on the screen. I'm almost beating level 3. My WPM is off the charts. I can see that. You've got a visitor. Lily turned. Her face brightened. Hi, she chirped. You're the guitar guy. Jordan smiled, and something inside him hurt at how easy that was for her to say. Like he was just part of the furniture of her life now. The guy she sometimes saw at the cafe. Nothing more, nothing less. Guilty as charged, he said. I heard you're the drawing girl. She lifted her chin, pleased. I am, she said. Did you bring the album? The one with my design on the cover? He chuckled. Art doesn't get printed that fast, he said. but I was hoping maybe you could help me with something else. I have a song that I think needs an expert opinion from someone with excellent taste. Lily glanced at her mom, eyes shining. Can I? It's up to you, Elena said, hiding her nerves behind a casual shrug. We've got 20 minutes before we have to go anyway. Okay, Lily said decisively, but only if you promise it's not like a baby song. No babies, Jordan said. Only very serious, very cool songs. He led them to the small reading room off to the side, mostly used for quiet tutoring. He grabbed a chair, turned it around, and sat, guitar resting on his knee. Elena took a spot against the wall, arms crossed loosely, trying not to look like she was holding her breath. Lily flopped into a beanbag across from him. So, Jordan said, fingers idly plucking a few notes. True or false? Music sounds better on rainy days. True, Lily answered immediately. Rain is like free background sound. He grinned. I knew you were smart. He started to play. Not one of his old songs. Not even a finished one. Just something new that had been growing in him since the night in the alley. Melodies full of almosts and maybes and second chances. Chords that felt like apologies and promises woven together. When he started to sing, he didn't aim the words at Elena or at some faceless crowd. He aimed them at the small person in front of him, whose fingers tapped out rhythms she didn't even know she'd borrowed from him. You don't know my story. I don't know your fears. But I've been waiting on a someday that looks a lot like here. He wasn't sure how much she understood. He just knew her eyes stayed on his hands the whole time. When he finished, she let out a long breath. That was... She searched for a word. Big. Big? He echoed, amused. Like, it feels bigger than this room, she said. And a little sad, but the good kind of sad. The kind that makes your chest hurt, but in like, nice way. Jordan glanced at Elena. She was looking at him, something raw and open in her eyes. Yeah, he said hoarsely. That's kind of what I was going for. Did you make it up? Lily asked. Yeah. Started it a while ago, but I think I've been finishing it lately. She nodded thoughtfully. You should put drums in, she said, like quiet ones. Boom, boom, boom. She tapped the pattern on the carpet. Offbeat, syncopated. His throat tightened. That's a great idea, he said. Maybe you can help me with the rhythm sometime. Her eyes lit up. Really? If your mom's okay with it, he added. They both looked at Elena. She swallowed. That could be arranged, she said slowly, as long as homework gets done first. Homework is my middle name, Lily lied. Jordan laughed. Good to know, Lily Homework Ward. The three of them sat there, the silence between them no longer sharp and dangerous, but soft and a little awkward. It wasn't the right moment. He knew that, but moments have a way of making themselves. Hey, Mom, Lily said suddenly. I have a question. Hmm? Elena hummed. How do you know the guitar guy? She asked, brow furrowing. You looked weird yesterday at the cafe. Like you saw a ghost. Did you date him or something? Jordan coughed, nearly choking on his own spit. Elena's cheeks flushed. That is a very direct question, she said. You always say honesty is important, Lily replied. Elena exhaled slowly. I did know him, she said. A long time ago. Before you were born. We were close. Then life got complicated. Complicated how? Lily pressed. Jordan's fingers nervously found a chord and held it, strings humming quietly. Elena looked at him. He met her gaze. Elena turned back to her daughter. Bug, she said gently. You know how in stories, sometimes a character thinks they're doing the right thing, But then later they realize it hurt people they care about. Yeah, Lily said slowly. That happened to me, Elena said, with Jordan. I made choices I thought were right at the time, and now I'm trying to figure out how to fix them, or at least tell the truth about them. Lily frowned, absorbing that. Did you hurt him? She asked, eyes flicking to Jordan. Yeah, Jordan said softly, before Elena could answer. She did, but she also kept a lot together on her own. And I wasn't exactly perfect either. Lily studied them like they were a particularly interesting puzzle. Are you mad at her? She asked Jordan. He thought about it. Yeah, he said honestly. A little. But I think I'm more sad about everything I missed. What did you miss? She asked. He swallowed. Watching you grow up, he said. The room went very quiet. Elena's eyes widened. Lily blinked. What do you mean? She whispered. This wasn't how they'd planned it. There was no script, no careful, child-friendly explanation worked out beforehand. The truth had slipped out, messy and human, the way truth usually does. Jordan looked at Elena, asking for permission without words. Her hand went to her tattoo. She nodded, just once. Jordan turned back to Lily. I mean, he said quietly, I'm not just some random guitar guy, kiddo. He took a breath that felt like stepping off a cliff. I'm your dad. Silence. The word hung there, too big for the room, somehow fitting perfectly anyway. My... what? Lily's voice shook. Your dad, Jordan said, holding her gaze. Not the dad your mom was married to. He was your dad in all the ways that matter, and I would never try to take that away. But biologically, DNA-wise, I'm your father. Lily's eyes filled with tears so quickly he barely saw the moment they arrived. She looked at Elena as if hoping this was some weird joke. Mom? She whispered. Is that true? Elena's own eyes were wet now. Yes, she said, voice breaking. It's true. You knew? Lily asked, voice rising. This whole time? And you didn't tell me? Elena flinched. I was trying to protect you, she said. You'd already lost one dad, and I didn't know how to tell you there was another one. I didn't want to confuse you or hurt you. But you did, Lily said, tears spilling over now. You hurt me, right now. I know, Elena whispered. And I am so sorry. Lily scrubbed at her cheeks angrily. She turned back to Jordan, searching his face for something. Maybe a lie, maybe a piece of herself. Why didn't you come earlier? She demanded. If you're my dad, why weren't you here? Jordan's heart cracked. Because I didn't know, Lily, he said. Every word weighted. I swear to you, I had no idea. Your mom didn't tell me she was pregnant back then. I only found out after we ran into each other at the cafe. She did a test. She showed me yesterday. He swallowed hard. If I had known, I would have done everything I could to be here, to know you, to watch you go from this big, he gestured at the floor, to this big. He held his hands a few inches apart, then stretched them wider. Despite herself, a small, strangled laugh escaped her. That was a very inaccurate measurement, she sniffed. He smiled through his own tears. I'm new at this, remember? He said. First day on the job. Her laugh faded, but the edge of her anger dulled. So, what now? She whispered. You're just suddenly my dad and we pretend like we've known each other forever? No, he said softly. We don't pretend. We start from where we are. not where we wish we'd been. He leaned forward. Right now, I'm a stranger who happens to be your father. But maybe, if you'll let me, I can become your dad. For real. One day at a time. Lily bit her lip. That sounds hard, she said. It will be, he agreed. But some of the hardest things are the ones worth doing. She sat there, small and fierce and trembling, the world inside her rewriting itself in real time. After a long, long moment, she asked, Can I think about it? Relief flooded him. You can think about it as long as you need, he said. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? She whispered. He didn't hesitate. I promise. She nodded. Then, without warning, she crossed the tiny room and sat carefully in front of him, not quite touching, but close. Can you play that song again? She asked. The big, sad one. He swallowed. Yeah, he said. I can do that. He played. This time, when he sang about someday, he wasn't singing to some vague horizon. He was singing to his daughter, sitting on a beanbag chair, counting the beats on her fingers. The months after that weren't a montage. They were messy. Some days, Lily was all questions. What's your favorite color? Do I get my hair from you or Mom? Were you scared when you found out? Are you going to leave? Some days, she was quiet and moody, snapping at both of them, slamming her bedroom door and refusing to explain why. Some nights, Elena lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if she'd done the right thing after all. She watched her daughter's heart stretch to make room for a new shape of love and feared it might tear. Jordan stumbled more than once. He brought Lily a guitar too big for her and had to return it for a ukulele. He forgot that 8-year-olds couldn't stay out late on school nights, even if it was just one more song. He said the wrong thing about Ethan one afternoon and watched Lily shut down entirely. But he kept showing up. Saturday mornings at the park, teaching her how to catch a frisbee. Tuesday afternoons at the library, helping her sound out harder words even though she was clearly reading just fine without him. Late-night texts to Elena. Jordan, did I just traumatize her by saying broccoli is tiny trees? Elena, no. She's currently drawing faces on them. You might have created broccoli friends, though. They fought. He got angry at Elena for the years he'd lost, for the pictures and first steps and first words he'd never get back. She got angry at him for making it look so easy now when it had been so hard then. But in between the anger, there was something else. Little moments of peace. The first time Lily fell asleep with her head on his shoulder at the cafe. The way Elena watched them from the counter, a sad, fond smile on her face. The night they all three ended up on the tiny balcony outside Elena's apartment, wrapped in blankets, watching a thunderstorm roll in over the harbor. Lily declared that thunder was God's drums, and Jordan spent 20 minutes trying to turn the lightning pattern into a rhythm. One afternoon, months later, he was late for a gig at Harbor Lights. He rushed in, guitar case banging against his leg, apologies on his tongue. Then he saw them. Lily, sitting cross-legged on a chair near the stage, ukulele in her lap. Elena next to her, fingers wrapped around a mug, cheeks pink with what might have been pride. Where were you? Lily demanded. We started without you. You did? He asked, feigning offense. Yep. She strummed a chord, a little buzz on the third string. I wrote a song. Already showing me up, he said. Okay, then. Let's hear it. She cleared her throat, suddenly shy. It's not finished, she warned. But Mom helped with some of the words. The song was simple, a handful of chords, a melody that tilted upward at the end of each line, full of hope. The lyrics were about a boat that had drifted too far from shore and a lighthouse that had forgotten how to shine, and how somehow, against all odds, they'd found each other in the dark. By the time she reached the last line, I thought I was alone out on the water. But then the light turned on and there you were. Jordan's vision had gone blurry. That was... He broke off, clearing his throat. That was incredible. It still needs a bridge, Lily said, and better rhymes, and maybe a drum part. We can figure that out, he said, together, if that's okay. Duh, she said, rolling her eyes like any regular 8-year-old. You're the musician. I'm just the genius. He laughed. I see how it is. Elena smiled, watching them. Her fingers found her tattoo through the fabric of her shirt. Hey, Jordan said suddenly, setting his guitar aside. Wait right here. He disappeared out the back door, leaving them exchanging puzzled looks. He returned a few minutes later with a small box in his hands. What's that? Lily asked, eyes lighting up at the possibility of a surprise. Something I've been working on, he said. He handed the box to Lily. She opened it carefully. Inside, on a bed of cotton, lay a thin silver bracelet. In the center, a tiny charm gleamed, a miniature engraved music note, cracked down the middle and stitched back together. Lily's mouth fell open. It's our tattoo, she breathed. Kind of, he said. I figured you're a little young for permanent ink, but I thought maybe you'd want to be in the, club anyway. What club? She asked. He looked at her, then at Elena, who was staring at the bracelet like it was glowing. The not as broken as we thought we were club, he said. Lily's eyes shimmered. Will you put it on me? She whispered. His hands shook a little as he clasped it around her small wrist. Elena reached up and, without overthinking it, tugged the collar of her blouse down just enough that her tattoo showed. Jordan pushed his sleeve up. 3 versions of the same mark. One story, told 3 ways. Lily turned her wrist, watching the charm catch the light. So, she said, does this mean we're, like, officially a family? Jordan glanced at Elena. She held his gaze. If you want us to be, he said carefully. Lily thought for a second. I think, she smiled, we already are. That night, Harbor Lights was busier than usual. Word had gotten around town about the family show. Jordan and the kid he'd somehow acquired, the librarian who sometimes joined in for harmonies when she thought no one was paying attention. They played Lily's song. It still wasn't finished. The bridge was a little awkward. The drum pattern was just Jordan tapping his boot on the floor and Lily beating very quietly on the side of her ukulele. It didn't matter. People clapped anyway. When the last chord faded, Jordan looked out at the small crowd, at the rain streaking the windows, at the reflection of 3 figures on the stage. He remembered the way he'd felt that night months ago, when Lily had pointed at his wrist and the world had tilted. He remembered thinking his life was about to fall apart. He hadn't realized then that sometimes falling apart is the first step to falling into place. After closing, the owner dimmed the lights and left them alone in the quiet cafe. The 3 of them sat near the window, watching the last of the rain ease into a fine mist. You know, Elena said softly, fingers circling her mug, there was a time I thought getting this tattoo was my biggest mistake. Jordan looked at his own wrist. Me too, he admitted. I thought it was the moment everything broke. Lily held up her bracelet. Now it's the reason I found you, she said. Elena smiled, eyes wet. Yeah, she whispered. Now it's that. Outside, the streetlights reflected in the slick pavement like small, patient stars. Inside, the air held the last echoes of a song about boats and lighthouses and second chances. Lily yawned, her head lolling against Jordan's arm. Sleepy? He asked. A little, she murmured. Will you be here tomorrow? If you want me to, he said. She closed her eyes. I do, she said simply. Elena met his gaze over their daughter's head. There was still a lot they hadn't fixed. Old hurts that would take time to heal. Conversations they hadn't had yet. Choices to be made. But under all of that, something quiet and steady had begun. A rhythm. A new song. The kind you don't rush. The kind you learn slowly. Together. Jordan rested his cheek lightly against the top of Lily's head. Outside, the rain finally stopped. Inside, for the first time in a long time, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The long winter he'd been carrying around inside his chest was starting to melt, and as the last drop slid down the window, he realized he wasn't alone in the storm anymore. He'd found his way home. If this story reminded you of someone you've lost, or someone you found a little later than you hoped, feel free to leave them a quiet message in your mind, or whisper it out loud. Somewhere, there's always a heart waiting to hear that it's not too late to turn the light back on.